fight on. It's time for Versus.
So, fight time. So, in Versus, what are we doing here, Sean?
We've got the 1990s versus the 2020s. So the 90s versus now.
So this is going to be an epic showdown of two different decades, right?
Yeah.
So now I know some of you out there might be feeling that the 90s nostalgia, but let's break that down into some key areas and let's see how these two decades really stack up.
Now, we're only halfway through the 20s. It's 2025. And we're going to look at some of Mick's research here to put some pros and cons back and forth and, I guess, see if there's going to be a victor out of these two decades. And again, even though we're halfway through, I think it's going to be a fun comparison, Chris.
I think so, yeah.
So we've got everything from pop culture, right, to technology, fashion, and even the economy, dare I say it. And we're going to dive in and start with the ultimate battle. So pop culture and entertainment.
Pop culture and entertainment. Okay, so this one's going to be a fun one. So let's look at the 1990s first.
Yep.
So the 90s, of course, in our eyes, were iconic. We had TV shows like Friends, of course, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the X-Files. Who could forget that spooky music on the X-Files?
It was killer.
And of course, they're still beloved today. Like, I mean, you can still watch these reruns. And then this is also the music. Who could forget that? We talked about the cool NSYNC, Backstreet Boys earlier. We got the grunge. We had Nirvana.
Yeah.
The hip-hop legends like the Tupac and the Biggie Wars back in the day. And, of course, getting back to music, we had Britney Spears, Backstreet
Your
Boys.
favourite, yeah.
Yeah, my favourite. Of course, I love those guys. Had all their albums,
cool.
posters. And don't even get me started on movies, which we, of course, will touch on. Titanic, The Matrix, Jurassic Park, of course, The Lion King, plus many more. And the video games. I mean, who can forget the video games? The 64 come out, Super Mario, GoldenEye, Legend of Zelda. There was just... It took the world by storm when the 64 came out.
It did, and I do agree, all those things are iconic, but we'll talk about the 2020s, and it's a whole different world now, a whole different landscape. The biggest change is streaming. I think streaming is probably the biggest. So platforms like Netflix, Disney+, KO, HBO Max, Paramount+, it fucking goes on forever. Yeah. Every single thing, like even music, Spotify, everything, it's ridiculous. It's completely reshaped the industry. TikTok's done the same. There's viral entertainment, right?
Viral entertainment.
We're currently on a...
That's the problem, right?
Well, we're on a podcast, and we're filming ourselves making a podcast here, and that is viral entertainment. It's a completely different world. Movie theatres, they're on the way out.
They are, big time, yeah.
Drive-in theatres, drive-in cinemas.
That used to be a fun thing as a kid, right?
Absolutely gone, pretty much. I don't know any left. I think there's one left in Queensland that I know of.
There is one at Yatala. Down the Gold Coast, there is.
Yeah, but they're basically all gone, which is pretty crazy, especially since the COVID-19 pandemic. And social media, whether you love it or you hate it, it's transformed pop culture, and there's influencers shaping trends in celebrity culture. We're not influencers. Hell, this is our first podcast. We're just having a crack at putting some of our thoughts out into the ether. But yeah, very different landscape.
It is.
Verdict, thoughts?
So the verdict, I'm a little swayed here. So I'm going to say, obviously, I think the 90s. They just had that special nostalgia. And there was a magic about the 90s, you know. Like we said, there were so many great things produced in the 90s. But the 2020s offer a more diverse, globalized, and accessible entertainment experience. It's not like you... And by experiences... You look forward to going to the movies. You look forward to going to Blockbuster and renting something. It was a different...
But it was a challenge to do that.
It was a challenge to do that.
In hindsight.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Like now, you just want to watch a film. You can just...
YouTube it or whatever.
So we're saying the 90s? Is that the verdict?
90s. I'm 100% 90s.
Okay.
90s.
We're going 90s for pop culture entertainment. And next up, we're going to talk technology and innovation. The 90s were a huge turning point, like massive. Massive.
Yeah.
The internet was booming, or started booming. 95, Windows 95. I think in Australia, a little bit different in Australia. People didn't have home PCs until kind of the late 90s.
Yeah, I'd say late 90s. You were rich if you had a computer in the mid 90s.
Yeah, very much so. Especially even, well, it's weird to say it now because they don't have them in computers anymore. But a CD-ROM drive.
A CD-ROM drive. Yeah.
Big deal, right? Cell phones. No one calls them cell phones anymore, right? Smartphones. Touch phones, whatever you want to call them, massive. They became mainstream in the 90s. The 90s was when that technology really started to take off. Mobile phones, for people who don't know, were very, very different back then, but nevertheless.
And then snakes.
Snakes.
Yeah, we had snakes.
Snake, yeah, it was such a good
Snake.
game. Then we had consoles with cartridges. That was pretty... Yep, blowing the cartridge, you've got to clean it out. Do you know you're never supposed to do that? We'll talk about that in another episode, but there you go. PlayStation, Nintendo 64, changes that alter the way we live. Those consoles, there's some behind us, definitely was iconic. Changed the world.
Changed the world, yeah, absolutely.
2020s?
So 2020, so if we fast forward to the 2020s, and we're not talking about game changes like the 5G, artificial intelligence and virtual reality, smartphones are now superpowered devices, of course, and social media has become an omnipresent force in everyday life. I mean, you can't escape it. Like, unfortunately, you just can't escape it.
All right, I'm going to go with the 2020s on that one.
2020.
It's a big call. I think that as far as technology and advancements in technology, it's changed things, but I think mostly for the better. And I say that because, well, there are pros and cons, obviously, but being able to reach out and talk to somebody you haven't spoken to in a long time via Facebook or social media, that's a pretty big thing. And I think that the 2020s, like our current state of play, I think probably maybe just outdoes the 90s.
Place. Yeah, it's a smaller place, definitely, these days.
But I mean, without the 90s, setting the foundations for that technology, we wouldn't have that. But yeah, I'm going to go, I think it's the 2020s.
Okay.
For that one.
Well, we'll just have to disagree on that. So let's.
I was going to say it's 1 for 1. 90s
it's 1 for 1. 1 for 1. Okay.
Yeah,
okay. Right. I think you're wrong, but anyway. Okay, I hear what you're saying, Sean. But okay, so let's shift gears here. Let's get into some politics, the good stuff, and society. So the 90s were a time of relative global peace, the end of the Cold War, and the rise of democracy, and the spread of globalization were all big themes. We saw the dissolution of the Soviet Union, and the internet was becoming, I mean, it was just booming at that time, and allowing us to connect the world in new ways. So the world really became a smaller place during the late 90s, especially. Of course, there were still issues like the Gulf War and early climate change awareness, but it was an era of optimism, I'd say.
Yeah, look, I would say the same thing about the 90s. The 2020s, on the other hand, more significant social movements. These things are stuff that I don't think is particularly, I guess, fun to talk about, but it is important that there's a push for equality and diversity. I think that is important overall. And so I do think that the political landscape now probably is a bit better than the 90s, because there's a bit more, I guess, understanding, a little bit more... I guess there's so many things have happened since COVID as well, and it's had a massive effect on health and mental health and the way people do things. So as far as politics and society, the 2020s, a lot of change, a lot of cultural change. I'm going to say, and I think you probably agree, the 90s for society itself was probably maybe a better period of time.
Absolutely, it was a better time. Yeah, it was an easier time. There wasn't so much stress, and you weren't as contactable, I'd say. That's what made the 90s so good.
The right to disconnect.
Yeah, the right to disconnect. Yeah, absolutely.
That's one thing. Also, there were. I was going to say there were some pretty cool characters in the 90s, like Bill Clinton, but we've got Trump.
We've got Trumpy, yeah.
Well, we don't.
No, we don't.
In Australia, we don't. We've got Albo.
We've got Albo.
Albo. Yeah, well, he's not much of a character. He's fairly innocuous, but anywho. All right, so we're going to go, I think we go the 90s there, Chris.
90s, yeah, I'm with you.
90s 2, 20s 1. All right.
Stepping into your next favourite topic, we're going to talk fashion. We're going to talk 90s fashion.
Thanks, Mick, for some of these topics. It's a bit deep.
I mean, I hope we can bring up some images for you on the TV here. I mean, there was some great stuff in the 90s. It was an absolute fashion roller coaster. So we had the baggy jeans, remember those?
Yeah.
Flannels.
Remember?
Flannels. I mean, they were everywhere.
Flannels are still everywhere.
Bucket hats. It was a true mix of streetwear and high fashion. There was a lot of blending going on at those times. Brands like Tommy Hilfiger, the Levi's and Adidas were huge. Remember the Adidas jackets and it was everywhere.
There are people who still
cling to those fashions. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, fast forward to today, and fashion in the 20s is all about embracing retro trends. So that's what I'm saying.
It is.
People now wear clothes from the 90s. Don't they?
They do, yeah. It's just regurgitated.
But that's happened.
Version.
That's happened. I think
forever.
Forever.
Yeah, forever.
I mean, people would. it was like in the 90s, people thought wearing clothes from the 70s was cool, and then the clothes that were kind of new in the 90s are now cool.
Cool again.
in the
Yeah, that's right.
It's very bizarre. The 2020s fashion is all about, I guess, sustainability in fashion. We're talking about social media influencers. People on TikTok, what they do and what they wear and how they do their makeup and all that sort of stuff. That's a big thing now, particularly for Gen Z. Not so much for us. But I think the 90s.
I think the 90s for sure. The 90s, they were, I mean, had some great stuff in the 90s. Fashion-wise.
Well, we're saying that the 2020s, a lot of the fashion is based around the stuff from the 90s, so it's working on this nostalgia, which we love, obviously. And in the 90s, those fashion trends were new. So in the 90s, the stuff that people were doing in fashion was new at the time. And now we're just copying that in the 20s. So it's got to be the 90s, right?
It has to be the 90s.
All right,
absolutely.
90s
we're sold on
90s are killing it.
I think we're sold on the 90s, right?
All right.
Who do you think wins? I mean, who are you sticking with?
Look, I did have the 2020s, I think, having a win, but overall, I think the verdict's, victory has to go to the 90s.
It has to.
Yeah,
if you're someone who values iconic entertainment and the simplicity of digital life and good old nostalgia, then the 90s. I mean, you can't go past them. You can't go past the 90s, I don't think.
So I think we have a winner.
We have a winner.
We're
going to crown the 90s the winner. I'm sure there's going to be people out there who disagree, but
if they do, you don't have to listen to any more we've got to talk about, because you're going to be disappointed.
You're going to be very disappointed.
It's all about the 90s.
It is. It's all 90s.
We have a winner. Victory, the 90s.
Victory.
There it is.
Victory.